How can industry and Louisiana fisheries coexist? Shrimpers, oystermen, and crabbers in Cameron Parish have been experiencing extreme fallout, up to an 80% catch loss in some cases, since Venture Global LNG has taken residence in the Calcasieu River. We are sitting down with fishermen from Cameron Parish and local advocates to discuss what has happened and what can be done. First, we have James Hyatt on the end, Director of Bayou. A former oil and gas worker turned community advocate, James Hyatt is committed to building people power across Southwest Louisiana by inviting others to remember our shared dignity, the sacredness of every life, and our responsibility to care for our common home. Through watchdogging industry, engaging in public discourse, and empowering civic engagement, Bayou helps restore the rightful voice of the people in shaping the region's future. By helping neighbors turn frustration into action and amplifying voices too often overlooked, we remind the world that love of neighbor and the sacredness of every life are more powerful than backroom deals and the machinery of money. That's James Hyatt, everyone. Next up, we've got Skye Ledger, who is representing Fisherfamily Advisory Council for Tradition and Stewardship along with Solomon. Skye has been shrimping and oystering in Cameron for 15 years. He recently experienced extreme catch loss from a dredge disaster from construction for Venture Global CP2 that left oyster reefs and estuaries covered in dredge sludge. Skye is leading hydrophone deployment in habitat recovery projects, community science effort to track underwater noise pollution and its effects on shrimp. Everyone, a little round of applause for Skye. Following that, we have Solomon Williams, Jr. from the Fishery Advisory Council for Tradition and Stewardship, who is a multi-generational, small-scale commercial oysterman, shrimp dog hand, and parent of 6 children. Solomon is particularly interested in advocating for the safety and rights of the elderly fishermen and the heritage of the Cameron community. What? 5? You know. You know, we'll look back on these in a few years, and that will be correct. No. Okay. Thank you for correcting me on that. I was counting in my head. I was like, that seems like a lot. For Cameron, the community once the seafood capital of the United States and now the epicenter of one of the biggest fossil fuel buildouts of our world. All right, thank you, Solomon. Last on our panel is Alyssa Porter, the founder and executive director of Habitat Recovery Project. Alyssa is a dynamic environmentalist and an activist known for her extensive work in sustainability, nonprofit deployment, and socially beneficial consultancy. Alyssa has spent the past 2 years meeting with and organizing Cameron Parish shrimpers, from hosting cookouts and community teach-ins to suing the industries that harm them. Alyssa is dedicated to understanding what is negatively affecting our fisheries and building people power to effect positive change for them. And I am your moderator, the Director of Communications and Partnership for Habitat Recovery Project, Misha Mayer. I created Gulf Rising podcast that has detailed environmental issues across the state. I'm an advocate for the health of Louisiana's ecosystems and have been working with the fishermen of Cameron for the past year and a half to amplify their stories through social media, press, and even a giant puppet show that will be happening later this evening. Before we head into questions, I want to know, do any of you feel like I left anything important out in your intros? Do you want to just go down, say hi, I am, and do a little wave? Yeah? We'll send it back from me. Hi, I'm Misha.
Hi, I'm Alyssa.
I'm James.
Solomon and Skye, you have to use your microphones.
Yeah. I just want to take a moment to understand the time and place we're in right now. We are witnessing an entire generation at risk of not having a future generation. From every point that we've come to, we're seeing on the backs of all of our ancestors a line of life that has continued up until this point. And what we have to choose from is continued exploitation and the profiteering of people from elsewhere, or the ability to continue to sustain our fisheries, not just the fisheries, our ways of life, because we are trading the future for the profit of the few. And the way that we can overcome that is by actually being empowered to know, like this march that happened today, that people coming together across a broad difference, conservative and more liberal people, understanding that we have so much in common and that we can make a way forward, because we all want clean air, we want clean water, we don't want to continue living in a place where corporations are put above people. And until that day that we are actually saying these things together, united, it will be very difficult to overcome and make for a better life. Sorry, I started.
Thank you. We will dive into that a little bit more on this panel. I wanted to start real quick with Alyssa. Would you give us a bit of a setup of how you became involved in this work?
So my name is Alyssa Porter, Director of Habitat Recovery Project. Habitat Recovery Project is rooted in my family's history, who were farmers back in Italy and came to America and settled in the first planned industrial city in the whole country, Calcasieu, New Jersey. And I was born there, and then my parents moved to a suburb nearby that was contaminated by DuPont. And I saw many people in my town get cancer, justice not served completely, and started doing work in contaminated communities.
How did you find this community?
And my partner is a street artist in New Orleans who lived here for over 10 years up until Hurricane Katrina, and left a piece of his heart here in Louisiana. And so I had been moved out to California, which was supposed to be a few weeks of work doing reforestation in wildfire devastated areas. And the pandemic hit, and I settled there for a year and a half before wildfires drove our family out. We arrived to Louisiana as climate refugees after a 100,000 acre fire came up to our property line and stopped. We found our house online and made a bid, and they accepted it, and we headed down with our goats in tow. We could either choose all of our stuff and a few of our goats, or all of our goats and a few of our things, and arrived with our goats to Louisiana and planned on living a simple farm life with our 2 children. And quickly I talked to my neighbors and saw that everybody was sick, and saw these giant industrial plants, and I said, hey, do you think there's a connection between, everyone being sick in this? And some of them were like, yeah, but there's nothing we could do about it. Some people didn't think about it much. And in my town, we were able to sue and get DuPont to pay people who were sick, and I was astounded when nobody was doing that down here, but I quickly learned it's because there are so many industrial plants that you can't sue a single one because you don't know which one has made you sick.
Alyssa, when was the first time you met the Cameron Parish fishermen?
I met a Cameron Parish fisherman during the America's Energy Summit 3 years ago. Or 4 years ago? James? I don't know. 3 years ago, I believe it was. And the America's Energy Summit is happening again this weekend in Southwest Louisiana, where a bunch of gas and oil folks get together to conspire development and profit. And the fishermen that day brought their boats to park outside of this conference and had signs posted up that we had painted on my farm that said things like, we won't take the bait, keep LNG out of our state, and that was the first time I met them.
Solomon, were you one of those LNG don't take the bait fishermen? Please step into your microphone.
Yes. My name is Solomon.
Can you tell us about what Cameron was like before you started protesting? What it was like in its heyday?
Yes, I would love to tell you all that. I was seeking and listening, but it's going to be a good little story. I moved to Cameron, Louisiana when I was 16 years old. I've been in Cameron, in Louisiana since then, in 89. My dad still lived there, he's 81, they still live in Cameron. We went through a lot of problems, but Cameron was beautiful. You know, Cameron was a place where retiring, you love to be on the water. I could walk out your back door and walk right across to the beach and fish all you want. Catch all the crabs and shrimp and the oysters and all that you want. It was great. We had a lot of stores. We had a lot of gas stations, really good food, really good boudin. We didn't have to go all the way to Charles to get it all the time. But sometimes we used to. But now, Cameron is nothing like that anymore. You know, my dad still tries to live there, but it's hard.
I'm going to come back to you in a moment, Solomon, but I wanted to clarify that it's hard because the industry has come in and made your way of life next to impossible.
Yes, true.
All right. James, can you tell us how industry has shaped southwestern Louisiana over the years? And then can you tell us what LNG is?
Yeah, thank you for that. This is important to note is that I used to work in industry. My father retired from a company, retired from one of these refineries. This is a lot of people's story too. But from the very beginning, there has not been accountability. They dredged our ship channel for industrial expansion of exporting timber to begin with, and then importing and refining crude oil to make plastics and the gas and the diesel and everything else that every one of us use. But those communities alongside there are experiencing emissions and a regulatory agency and apparatus that doesn't work for the people. And it's the same story, whether it's wildlife and fisheries, environmental quality. These agencies in this state can only be defeated, and the rules can only be changed when people plug in and get together. So we have LNG on the coast, right at the mouth of the river, with absolutely no setbacks required for how close they had to build that thing and where people live. And they've already got built 3 of them down there. And they keep promising that prosperity comes. It's so good. They don't pay any taxes. They don't pay any property taxes. And there's no sales tax in the parish. So the benefit for the community is nothing but pollution and more ship traffic day after day. And they want to build more, and they're building more. Yeah.
Thank you. And they built more, and Solomon, what has happened? Can you put a finer point on what has happened to the shrimping industry in Cameron?
Yes, LNG built more, and they're trying to build CP2 now. The dredging project that they had going on killed a lot of sediment in the water, and they didn't come to that. And now the shrimping industry, even before the end, has just gone down to nothing.
Skye, you experienced the dredge fallout more than I think anyone on this stage, and I would like for you to tell us your understanding of what happened in August and then how it affected you.
So in August, Venture Global decided to put a halt on dredging because it was reported that they had a breaching levee and there was mud spilling out into the lake. What they didn't tell you was that they were reported that that breach happened sometime around the beginning to the middle of July. It was reported by a contract company, if I'm not mistaken, called K&T's Engineering or something like that. And they reported to Venture Global that there is a breach, there is sediment leaking out. I don't know the numbers, so I'm not going to sit there and lie, but it was a lot. So 2 weeks later, they decided, and everybody found out about it, that it was a good idea to shut it down because it was going to cause a problem. And since then, we've traveled there. We go there every day. We pull in and out to that weir every day in a boat that draws probably about a foot of water. Okay, and we have no problem. The last time we went and looked, we almost had to get out the boat and push it away from the weir because it was in so much mud it wouldn't move. You look across the weir, the little no-name Bayou, you can literally see half the crab trap that's sitting on the bottom where it used to have 5 foot of rope on it, and you couldn't see nothing but the cord. Well, if I'm not mistaken, Wildlife and Fishery sent their biologists out there to do tests on the oysters, and they said that there is a substantial amount of silt all over the reef, everywhere. Now, when you come out of the weir, depending on which way the tide's going and the wind's blowing, it's going to go both ways, or either way, whatever you want to call it. And I guess under the illusion that it was going to get sucked down the old river and not go any further than what it was, they tried to lie and say that it was on the reef right by our farm, but it didn't cross the river and go to the farm. Well, at that time, we had probably about 400,000 oysters out of the lake. Say 200,000 of them were ready to sell. Now, there was 200,000. If we saved 20 to 30,000 of them, we'd be like. So you're looking at over $100,000 worth of lost oysters, and nobody to account for it. They had that person come out from Venture Global, come look at everything. I mean, we went through it all. We flipped every cage, we showed her every day oyster. She probably spent about 25 minutes looking at it before she got back on the phone and started competing with the woman she came with, and that was it. They have absolutely no concern for anything with their families. They have absolutely no respect for anybody that works or lives in Cameron Parish at all. If I'm not mistaken, I had somebody with me yesterday while I was hydrophone, had a ship pass by. He wasn't doing 15 to 20 miles an hour when he came into the ship channel. Like, everybody makes a big deal out of this no-wake thing they just came out with. There's no no-wake zone in Canada. When ships pass, they suck out water for 30 minutes. Whenever they're gone, it takes 30 minutes before that wave even gets to you. But when it gets to you, you'll never forget it. I mean, at the farm, there's a little, it's like a little shed or shack, whatever you want to call it.
And by farm, you mean?
The oyster farm.
Okay, thank you.
We have like a little shack on the corner of the house that we use as like a workstation. You know, it's where we talk about all this shit, it's where we count everything. We got a dock there, so we're about 24 foot, probably about 3 foot out of the water. And one of those ships passed, I've seen waves clear the whole, you couldn't even see that little wharf that goes out in the water. And they got tugboats behind them, they got tugboats in front of them. Some of them dragging tugboats all the way from Hackberry to the Gulf. They have no concern. The people that are working for the plant, the boat taxis and the personnel boats and all that, they come through Monkey Island Cut doing about 30 miles an hour right next to our boat. They beat the hell out of everything that's back there. They have no concern. They go to stores, they're just rude people. And it's like they're almost told that they can do it because they get away with everything they do. If you go to Cameron at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it sounds like that drag strip. People with loud cars and fast stuff, and they got cops directing traffic. You see people leave the store going 45, 50 miles an hour. The speed limit in Cameron is 25 miles an hour. There's absolutely no sense in revving up a car that can go 200 miles an hour to go 25 miles an hour. You ain't got more than 50 feet to drive before you get to where you're going. There's 20 people that live in the town. I'm exaggerating my numbers, but you gotta understand what I'm saying. There's more people at this event that we have in Cameron than any event that we have. The Fur Festival lasts for 3 days. We used to have it every year. It was the biggest event probably in the 38th Judicial District because Cameron was so small and so many people would come. And now when you go, you're lucky to find a kid to go ride something. It's horrible. They've completely destroyed everything. And they're not stopping.
No, they're not stopping. They're building 5 more. Is what they want to do. And it sounds like
sounds like a stronghold robbery.
It does. And like disrespect and insult to injury, right?
I don't know how much land is going to be left after they finish building that and how we're all supposed to separate that and find something to do with it. Because whatever's left ain't gonna be no good. They're buying everything they can, including people's yards, houses, businesses, everything. If you're willing to sell it, they're gonna buy it. But then what? You know, you can go move somewhere else and buy another house, but if you're a commercial fisherman, there's only so many places you can go. And at this time of night, you gotta learn where you're going all over again. So you might as well not know anything when you get there. Nothing. You don't know where you're gonna end up at. You don't know where you're gonna hit something. You don't know where you're gonna catch something. By the time you learn all that, you be ready to be able to pass on to your grandkids. You know, it takes years to learn that. I haven't even begun to learn that. I've been doing this for a long time.
Right, and so when we think about just transition, we think about this concept of trying to create ways for people whose industries are vanishing to have different just things to do. And
But those are for the people that want to do something better.
I
Something
feel
different.
you, that's for people who want
None of us
that.
want to stop doing what we're doing for a living. I love what I do. I've moved back to Cameron 3 different times over these 20 years that I've been going back and forth. I'm not trying to go nowhere else and do nothing else. I've gone through great things to get back over here, land job I got, hold on to it. I think that whenever all this dust settles, I mean, all these guys, you know, put commercial fishing licenses and stuff. Everybody's gonna end up getting something out of it, you know. But for the people that don't, I think it's pretty rough to know that in the future you're gonna be forced to find something else to do somewhere else. And whenever everybody leaves and they have that first step, put their foot on to be able to do something else, and you don't, I think that it's kind of, for lack of better words, I'm gonna tell you it's bullshit because there's no reason that we should be forced to have to do that.
I agree.
You know, like it's just.
I agree with that, and we are also living in the world that we are currently living in. So I am sending this over to Solomon. Solomon, you've been a part of a group called the Fishery Advisory Council for Tradition Stewardship. When you guys heard about what was happening in with the dredge incident, what did you do?
Well, I called and met with the lady. We talked about it. We went out in our own boats and we took our own samples. We tested, we did our own thing. So, and we found out what was all going on and we know it was happening. They told us it wasn't.
So, to be clear, you went out and I was with you and Alyssa was with you and we gathered silt because we were told there wasn't silt. And we videotaped the silt. And then James, as a hero, brought the silt to Pace. You were a hero because I watched you for an hour fill vials with dirt. And that was impressive. And I want you to tell us, because I want to clear up some of this mud, I want you to tell us what we tested for, what we didn't test for, what we found out, what we don't know still, and then we can talk about what conclusions we can draw from that. You got all that?
None of that. We took samples to a lab and then we had that lab run some tests. Because of the timing, we wanted to run these VOC, the volatile organic compounds, that are that easily volatilize, and so you have to catch them as soon as it happens. We live on a river, the Calcasieu River, that has been used as a dumping ground by industry for decades and decades. So much so that the northern part of the river, all the way up through 5 parishes, including Allen Parish, is considered a seafood advisory if you eat any bass or catfish. That you're only supposed to, if you're feeling lucky, you're not too young or too old or pregnant or immunocompromised, or think about, getting living a long life, you can have 2 meals a month of half a pound of fish in a river that is abundant with fish. So the reason that happens is because industry, like PPG, like Westlake Chemical, they dumped into that river for months, for years. And all of that is not been cleaned up. But it could be by these billion-dollar companies that don't care enough about the people. So we have to hold them accountable, and we can't allow for that mud that may have washed down the river and accumulated in that loop. because they had dredged that river. And so most of the stuff is accumulated in that loop. If they had spread that into the refuge and brought the lower part of the river into the same kind of seafood advisory that the other part was, they took the last remaining innocent land that could be used as these nurseries, and it has been used as nurseries, it's not contaminated. They took that and contaminated that. So we didn't find that, and that is the blessing. We didn't find PCBs. We also didn't test for a lot of these things. So you don't get just you can't just bring that in and say this is what we want to test for. We're looking for all these crazy things. You have to say specifically and how much they are, and it's parts per trillion is what they're looking for on these dioxins that are in the other parts of the river. Anyway, I could keep rambling on about that, but the important thing is that we didn't find the fear of that happening did not come true, but it did not result in that mud killing and blocking the bayou and the navigable parts of the United States water. So how can a private company lie to the faces of their regulators, and their regulators sit in Baton Rouge and investigate from their desk without actually coming and experiencing what's going on, despite us? Sorry, I should not be yelling into a mic.
Don't do it.
I know Frank is yours. Do it. Say the things.
Only about the fact that wildlife and fisheries sent their own biologists out there who reported that there was silt on the oysters and that it was damaging the reef. While Venture Global sent their biologists out there that they paid for and turned around and told a blatant lie in front of the people that they had to tell it to. And it was believed by Venture Global biologists. But they held whatever wildlife defenders say. But once in life, you know what I mean? Like the various things you just word from God. You have to abide by wildlife defenders. Main entity and law for the water. Does that make sense?
So you're saying that Wildlife and Fisheries said definitively that silt had silted over your oyster reefs and through the channel. We have all pictures and documents about that, and Venture Global said that there was not. Is that what I'm hearing?
They did change their story. About 2 weeks after Venture Global's biologists reported that there was no silt and there was no problem, that it was all contained and everything else, Wildlife and Fisheries decided to change their story. So now there's no problem.
How does a river work?
All these people have to make all these money. How do these people?
Yeah, they changed their stories, but we didn't even much ask anybody if they actually went out there to see if that happened. Because they went out there before and said that it was on there and they checked in, but when they come back after they talked to Venture Global, matter of fact, they went the same day that I went to talk to Venture Global, and after Wildlife Fishery the next week, they said it wasn't.
James, do you see any legal avenues or potential consequences for this dredging incident at this point where we're at?
I'm not a lawyer, so
I
I
know.
see severe
But you are-
damages. I see the restoration of what has been taken by industry in general. Besides, this is like a highlight of what has been happening in this state for a long time. The people in Baton Rouge, the people who listen to the lobbyists, but the people, us, the community, have not been holding the elected accountable. And they get an earful from industry lobbyists.
Because they're all in the pockets of the oil industry.
Because they're all in the pockets of the oil industry.
That is why. I had a question I wanted to ask these guys, and I worked on a shrimp boat from the time I was 14 until I was 16. I'm 66 years old now. I had this question my whole life. How does ice, which ice is as big as the shrimp industry, how does the chlorine in the frozen ice affect the shrimp that it's stored in? And the reason I ask this is because I spent a lot of time in the Mediterranean where they don't put seafood on ice, and it lasts a lot longer before spoiling. But You put ice on seafood and then it spoils in 2 days. In Greece, they have open air fish markets and there's no ice to be found, and that seafood lasts a lot longer. And I've always wondered if you've ever thought about that, about the chlorine in the ice.
I don't know if I can educational comment on that, but
You don't drink water out of your faucet, do you?
Not in Cameron.
No one does anymore, do they?
Not in Cameron.
Well, just think about how the chlorine affects the meat of the shrimp. I mean, it's just a thought for you to ponder, you know? There are so many things.
Who was in here earlier today that was talking? There was a man who does chemical testing who was just presenting. Dana, what's his name? David Williams. David Williams can probably run an experiment about this, about the chlorine that rubs off from the ice onto the shrimp. I think that David
It is something that needs to be investigated. And microplastics in shrimp are, you know, I mean, it's just unbelievable how much microplastics you consume when eating fresh shrimp in Louisiana. And the other thing is, I drive to go see my father in a nursing home in Reserve once a week, and there are people who fish the waterways in Norco and in all these places that these chemical plants are, and you're eating the seafood right next to these chemical plants.
They don't know about it, they just know that they're going to a honey hole. There's nobody else fishing there. There's going to be hundreds of fish to catch it, there ain't nobody there to catch it. If you don't know about it, you're going to go burn them up. And everybody wants to catch fish. There should be signs posted on the side of the river the whole way down, as long as the thing goes, hey, you want to play roulette?
It's after Hurricane Katrina, all of the trailers floating in Bayou Lafitte, and then you know, they cleaned it up a couple of weeks later, and then there were people fishing and trawling. It's like it's a big leap of faith to eat seafood these
So
days.
there is an EPA rule that allows industries to emit whatever they need to put out into the water or the air right before a disaster comes, and then they can GTFO out of town and put the things that they need to into your water or your air before the natural disaster pushes them into your homes. And that's something that is a huge point of discussion, and that's not exactly where I'm going right now. I do want to just close off this dredge issue. Skye, can you tell us what the shrimping is like since the dredge issue?
It's comparable to what it used to be. When I first moved into Cameron, it was like 1999. There were probably about 50 to 75 boats. You couldn't look anywhere and not see a boat. You get up on one boat, you don't want to shrimp in no more, you go get on another boat right next to them, no problem. You get the job like it was done. Now we probably have about 8 boats that shrimp out of Cameron that stay there. And if we had one more, everybody would start. There's not enough shrimp for 8 boats to catch in a place where 40 or 50 of them used to never touch the dock.
So Solomon, you are a part of a council with Tad, who Skye shrimps with, and Ray, who couldn't be here. What did Ray do this week? Can you tell us why Ray is not in town and why Ray is not here?
It's global. We have no shrimp in here. You know, or should they don't mess up the season. So Ray and his wife sometimes have to go 2, 3 to 4 hours away from home just to make a living, and then have to drive all the way back from there to home to go do it all over again, when he could be right here in Cameron catching just as many shrimp.
And he couldn't come today because he was shrimping. This is high shrimping season. And Tad is too, right? So we are blessed to have people come over here and represent and speak for our shrimpers and as our shrimpers. It's hard to get more during shrimping season because they are shrimping for their catch for the year.
Yeah, it's like many months of the year that you catch shrimp. And if you miss it, you miss it, then that's the day you get the phone call where everybody else that was shrimping thought 10,000 pounds worth of shrimp while you're doing something else. So just their work ethic, they're not built like that. But to drive that far to have to catch shrimp, you're burning 75% of what you're making. It's not to mention you might have to put it in the truck and bring it somewhere else to sell it. We don't even have anybody in Cameron that buys seafood anymore. When the silk drifted through, the guy that was running the Alyssa Porter shrimp shop broke up and got a job. We don't have any oyster season in Cameron because it don't matter how many we catch or what they're full of or what they grew out of. We don't have anybody to sell them to. And if we did, nobody wants to buy them. Because nobody knows if the oysters are going to be any good after they've been covered in mud and dying the whole time they've been sitting in the water. Like even on the farm. The whole farm probably has roughly 10 million oysters in it. The guy another guy that we're in partnership with the farm, I think he lost like 73% of what he had out of 5 million oysters. Okay, that's a lift. You understand that? Like that's detrimental to any business or anything that you got going on. And I mean,
Do you think he's gonna sue?
Pretty sure he's got a pretty good idea what he's doing. I'm not going to speak to him, but if he goes through, he's going to be all right. Let's just say it. But again, he's got money to do that. We don't. Like everything that we got goes into what we do. If we're going shrimping, all the money we got goes into fuel and ice and everything we need to go do it. If we're going oyster, everything goes into what we got to do, to go do it.
Well, do you think any of this stems from the BP oil spill, like what you're suffering now?
No.
No?
This is completely secluded and lack of respect for accountability. Dude, we're being bullied out where we live.
A lot of people, though, who receive,
there's no future in Canada.
a lot of shrimpers who receive compensation from BP are now out of the business because
They receive enough money.
No, because they became, their taxes were completely screwed and the money was taken completely away from them because they did not file their taxes properly when they received all of that government or BP money.
So like best case scenario, we have to look forward to with our compensation when the venture growth is done. I want somebody to point out one positive aspect as to what we have to look forward to once these people kick us out of where we live and take our entire heritage and lifestyle and livelihood away from us. What do you want the kids to do? You want your kids to know that when the ship passes, it eats the ground, it washes out the land, they got trees floating around the river and everything. And the people that it belongs to make between $180 to $300 million per ship. I've seen 3 to 5 ships leave out of that place in a week. They flare so big that it looks like something is on fire. It lights up the entire town of Cameron. I've got pictures of it. It looks like a giant big light.
What is it? A ship? With
Our ship traffic went from like 40 ships in a month. I think it's supposed to increase to like 300. And it's eating the ship channel so fast you can literally watch trees fall off the bank as the ship's pass. We have to watch whenever we're stripping not to catch them in the net. Like you gotta literally drive around trees floating around the river. There's no oysters in the channel.
So right, and the LNG facilities are huge. They are massive oil and gas facilities that fill up tankers full of the biggest ships you've ever seen and
The administration
bring them over to Japan and Germany, and it's an international chess piece that has heated up since Russia invaded Ukraine and Trump strong-armed other nations in August to invest, or say they were going to invest in our LNG, which is our liquefied natural gas, which, by the way, we can't produce the amount that they have pledged to buy, and they can't buy the amount that they have pledged to buy. So none of it, it's all like a circus, which is something that our partners across the seas have really put a fine point on. Alyssa, I want to bring it back on over to you. I know that you've been dedicating a lot of time and thought and energy, and I was wondering, first, before I go to the question that I've written, I want to talk to you about the port, right? So you, the people who made this,
I gotta go, y'all.
thank you,
Very interesting discussion.
who had this
Thank
dredge
you.
issue, it was partially the port at fault, right?
So the permit for the dredging that was happening, where they are deepening the waters, was held by the port as well as Venture Global as the executor of the permit.
Okay. And you met with the port director, Kim Monti,
That's correct.
and you wanted to, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you went in there trying to find justice for the fishermen.
That's correct. I think my hope was to deepen my understanding as well as their understanding to her on the experience of the fishermen, and to have a constructive conversation that was solution oriented and take a moment of being unlikely allies to see what we could dream up to help ease the pain of the situation.
What did you find?
I found that she was really enthusiastic about that. And I think there is so much potential to, nothing is going to put the fisheries back to what they were before in Canada, from what I see and what I hear. Speaking to fishermen who are the experts on this ecosystem water and who have spent generations being in relationship to the water, they teach me so much about the wildlife, about where the migrations used to be, where they are not any longer, where the smell of the mud has changed the most, how the color of the mud changed when the dredging happened on the oysters. They know it intrinsically. And so as an organization, this is something that we honor, and why we set up our Fisherfamily Advisory Council in collaboration with the fishermen. And I think this fishermen and locals as experts on their ecosystem is something that Louisiana needs to accept as fact. And this is something that I think the port director, Ms. Kim, was aware of as well. And I think that is a resource that can be leveraged. Some of the community may not want to stay in this place where they can no longer catch. And some of the community might want to try to get innovative, and if they can't make a living fishing anymore, they might become our citizen scientists, or may want to become other biological assessment agents in one way or another, or be the ones to build new oyster reefs like it's being done by groups like CRCL, who's here today, or be the ones who start oyster shell recycling programs like you have here in New Orleans on our side of the state. There is so much potential to work with them to continue to be stewards of the ecosystem and experts on the ecosystem. And in this time where the once fishing capital of the United States is now experiencing the largest gas build out in the United States of our lifetime, and catch has dropped more than 80% in some cases, as Misha mentioned, it's really important that we, not only in Southwest Louisiana, not only in Louisiana as a whole, but as a global community, see what is happening here to this ecosystem, how it is impacting the migration, how this massive build out is affecting fishing communities, because like Misha said, these boats are going to other fishing communities on the coast in places like the Philippines and Japan. In Mexico, they're building another LNG facility in a fishing community. And so we as collaborators and community hope to do the hard work and try to understand as best we can what is happening, especially in a situation where our agencies are failing us and not taking a sober look at what is happening and stepping up in the ways that we've talked about, collecting our own sediment testing, taking an analysis of our oysters and seeing how many are dead so that we know the truth as well.
James, what does accountability look like?
that the agencies of the government that are supposed to be, that are mandated, that are tasked with protecting community, actually enforce the law. That is accountability. When we hold the elected officials who are supposed to represent us in the halls of power, when we hold them accountable by calling them, that's how we get accountability. They lie.
Out of the
Politicians.
we have one person that's actually standing up and trying to help us do something that's right, and called every other member of the police jury out on a lie in the middle of the police jury. How many of you are up to date and in tune with what's going on in the world? Every one of them raised their hand and said, we've been following it, we know what's going on, we're on top of it. He said, well, how many of y'all have actually been there to see it? And there was a silence that went across the room that was just louder than anything you could have said. He was the only person that came out. He's the only person that standing up for anything. To elaborate on Kim Monti and all our enthusiasm. Told us, I don't remember how much time it was, but it was within the same day, if I'm not mistaken, that she was going to talk to Sarah Roy or whoever it was at Mr. Global. They were going to do what they can to see what they could find out about compensation or some kind of reprimand for the amount of oysters that were there. Turned around, called Venture Global in the same day and told them that there was no problem with anything away. That we didn't have anything going on, that it was just a little bit of silver that leaked out, there was no problem. Now there's a woman that came 2 days later with Sarah Roy to look at all our dead oysters. Out of the 5 million or so oysters that she got a chance to see, they might have saw about 150 of them. And they were worried about talking on the phone and everything else before they left. You know, like, they don't care. Even Kim, I'm sorry, I like Miss Kim, I really do. But whenever when you change your whole character and personality from talking to me to talking to these people because they have money and you respect them because they're ahead of you in society, then you don't need to be where you're at. You're not in charge of taking care of anybody but yourself. They're not worried about us because they're all right. The people that are supposed to take care of us don't live there. They don't care. People that make the most money there are the people that had money before Venture Global got there. They don't give anything back. Venture Global makes about $180 million off every ship. In the 5, 6, however many years they've been there, they've donated $6 million to the teacher fund. And I think they just donated a little bit more so that the teachers can get a 15% rate.
They're ripping us off, is what they do.
Their kids go to school in Cameron too. They should do that anyway.
Venture Global don't give a darn about Cameron. Venture Global don't give a darn about know where they build, wherever they want to build. If they can't get it, they're going to push it and get it through the government. They're going to push you out. They're going to steal your property. They're going to mess up your fishing industries and say they did, and they're going to steal. I asked that lady when they first started, I said, who come up with the plan to dredge and do what you did? I said, because only professionals ought to know what they're doing. And apparently you had no professionals out there that you spilled that stuff in the lake and then tried to cover it up. Just like you knocked down all the levees in the lake that caused to kill the oysters that we dig up, you know? And then when you tell them about the noise is not causing the shrimp not to be there. Yes, it is. You know what I'm saying? And the flaring. Oh, we flaring at the permit status. No, you're not. We done rode out there in the middle of the night. Spin out through the mosquitoes on the beach, watch them folks flare. And didn't have to run all the way down the road to catch them before they turned it down.
Well, about a 35, 40 foot.
So if anybody runs into this in your state or your country or wherever you at, and Venture Global is the one doing it, or any of these plants, they're gonna come and make as many promises to you that they can. And as soon as they get there, guess what they're gonna do? They're gonna go back to your police jury or your governor over there and get them to go up on what they already said they weren't going to do. So none of these plants don't go in. I worked in them, I rode in them, I drove in them for 30, 40 years. And ain't nothing they said tell you the truth. They tell you, oh, it's okay to go in that plant and you're not going to get cancer. I got a lot of my friends that got cancer from them plants. And we got enough of them in Lake Charles now. Why do we want to put it in Cameron? Where we can eat. Better can eat Lake Charles, the food nasty because of the plants. Now you're gonna put it in Cameron Parish. We used to have pogie plants in Cameron Parish. Cameron Parish people got mad because of the smell, and when the storm come and took them, they didn't want them back. But now you're gonna put a natural gas plant? Not one. You got 3 there already. You're building a 4th one, and you want to build 4, 5 more.
To put the point on it again, Cameron in the 80s was the fishing capital of the United States, and it is now decimated by being an oil and gas export facility.
In the year 2000, the road that the plant is on was lined with all the cones. From the stop line all the way to the water, every 100 or so feet, however big the lots were, they did not have one empty lot in that whole road. There was nothing but offshore companies, industrial supply companies and stuff, Newport, Baker Hughes, MI, Bayroy, ELI, they had a bunch of them. They had no problem with coexisting with us. And when I talk about boat traffic, I'm talking about hundreds of workboats and crew boats coming in and out of there every day. And this is when we had 50 to 75 boats shrimping. I can't even begin to tell you how many boats they had oystering because it was a lot more down there.
I have a question. Plaquemines Parish is getting a venture global LNG. Oh yeah. Solomon and Skye, please tell me what you would tell to Plaquemines Parish fishermen, and then we're going to have one more question for James and Alyssa, and we're going to wrap up this panel.
Don't sell. Don't sell. If the first person sells, the second person has to. They're going to try to get you, they're going to try to scare you, and at the end, if you don't sell it to them, they're going to take it from you. Make them take it. Because it's going to cost them more money to take it from you than it will to buy it from you.
They've already broken ground.
They still got, not the land that they built it on, I'm talking about the people that live around it.
They already, there was already one completed. Plaquemines is already running. We passed it yesterday going down, and there's 2 ships loading, and what they're loading is fracked gas. That's the other piece that people don't understand. The way that they're getting this gas, the way that America is producing our oil and gas, is some of the most toxic way because it comes up with produced water that they have to re-inject. And if you look at the water crisis that is going on, we're exporting and causing more issues for all of us. Water is life.
Water is life. James, if you could ask the audience here to do one thing to support the situation that we are in right now. Emotionally, physically, what would that be? Like, what do you want them to take away?
Yeah, I think we heard a lot today, even in these earlier panels, about the system and the way that it has failed us collectively. And what I want you to take away is that inaction is also a problem. If we are just comfortable with the status quo and the way things have been operating, we will find out that this story will be coming to our neighborhood, in our backyard. The continued dependency on corporations, on fossil fuels, on not making industry accountable for the ways that they have operated in our state. You have to become engaged. We should not be the 50th quality of life in Louisiana. Louisiana holds that spot almost continuously. When we have so much wealth, so much beauty to protect, so much abundance, this place is still beautiful. This place is worth protecting. And we cannot continue to allow some corporate interests to extract and exploit and further cause harm. So, you can follow what you can do right now today is be engaged with your local politics at your police jury level. What you can do for the fishermen is ask questions about where the shrimp you eat is coming from. And then if they are importing it, ask them why will they not support it. We live in an abundance of shrimp down here. Why would we ever import? I'll stop.
It depends on the dollar for the shrimp and where we come. We sell shrimp to the market for probably a third of what they sell it for. Like, you sell your shrimp at the market for $1.50, $2 a pound. Turn right around and see the same shrimp you sold to somebody else. That person will go on the side of the road and sell the shrimp at $8.99 a pound. because we don't have time to do that to go catch some more. That's a big difference, $6 a pound. Whenever we catch them, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 pounds and sell them to you for 2,000 pounds, how much money are you making? We're not making much off of that. We're making a chunk change compared to what you do on the side of the road, making, even if he's paying $4 a pound. He's still making $5 a pound off of the shrimp that we making $2 a pound off of, and all he has to do is drive from here to there.
So a better distribution system, I'm hearing. Alyssa, can you tell us in your mind what you see moving forward and how you would want, like the message that you would like people to take away from this panel?
Well, we started our citizen science as a result of talking with the fishermen, hearing that their catch had dropped, hearing that they're not catching where they used to catch upriver, and saying, why do you think that is? And we all started thinking about it and talking about it, and it came up, when you're fishing, rod and reel fishing, you don't want to stomp on the bottom of your boat, it'll scare the fish away. And so they said, could it be a noise pollution issue under the water that is causing a blockade that the shrimp are scared to pass and enter it to go where they used to spawn, and therefore the population's dropping and we are not catching up north beyond where the noises are. And so I think listening to fishermen is a really good first step. I think as we continue to do more projects, you could follow us on Instagram at Fisherfamily Advisory Council, Better Bayou, and Habitat Recovery Project, and help uplift the work that we're doing is a really easy way to be engaged. And then we are thinking about solutions, and I was inspired hearing Captain Kendra talk on stage earlier about the policy changes that she achieved. And in the near future, we're hoping to come up with some achievable goals that we can share and put into action. And so one of the ideas that has come up is potentially time of year use restrictions on the ship channel. We don't believe we can stop the LNG tanker ship traffic. However, during these months, 2 months of the year that brown and white shrimp and many other species are going up the Calcasieu River, and then the 2 months that they're coming back down, we think it would be highly beneficial, not just to those species, but to the fishermen, to not allow dredging operations during that time that will disrupt the migration, to not allow pylon driving, which we know from our hydrophones, you could hear them hammering pylons more than 70 meters into the ground, miles away. And that impacts the many porpoises that we have in the water. Every time we go out on the boats, we see dozens of dolphins. And so,
And they're trying to scare it away by people stepping on them.
yeah, we have a Pinky the dolphin.
Pinky the porpoise.
And their 2 kids.
So, if you could make a pinky promise to us that you'll stand with us as we do that, and try and push this forward to allow our river, the Calcasieu, which means crying eagle, ironically, in the indigenous language of our area, and was named one of the most endangered rivers in America in 2025. Misha was able to apply for that designation and achieve it. We're so proud of her for being able to do it.
Thanks, guys. It's a good talking point to really nail home all of the things that we have been working on. Is there anything else before I close this out?
Buy Gulf shrimp, eat Gulf shrimp, and enjoy it. Our wild caught shrimp is still a hell of a lot better than any farmed crap you get from overseas. So
And keep fighting all those plants. Don't stop fighting, guys, because that's the only way we can win. We can't push them out, and we can make them stand up to what they're supposed to stand up to.
And we are really proud of our community science initiative to do hydrophones with Thriving Earth Exchange. And we're so excited that we have created a puppet show about the issue, and it will be on the main stage at 6:30. It's called The Little Shrimp and the Terrible Noise. So please stick around. for our giant puppet show. If you want to buy a cool shirt, we have them for sale at our table. And if you like listening to my voice, I have a small series of deep dives on what's going on in some aspects of Louisiana's environmentalism, and it's the podcast called Gulf Rising. So you can go listen if you want to just hear an investigative journalistic approach to Louisiana.
Do it, it's incredible.
And thank you guys so much for coming and doing this here today.